All right. Hey there, everybody. Looks like hopefully the microphone's working because it was like I keep hitting my head on the fucking shit.
Yeah, it looks like it's dropped down a little bit.
Yeah. Well, because sometimes I try to, but sometimes I forget that it's there, and sometimes I turn my chair, like if I'm going to the bathroom or something, I'm just like...
If she gets hit in the head with a microphone, boom, we saw it coming. That's not going anywhere, though.
Well,
It's not going anywhere. Okay, so we saw Full Metal Jacket. That was yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, last night, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, you had seen it before, right? I had also seen it before, but it had been like a really long time since I had seen it.
I had forgotten how old this movie was.
Yeah, 87 this came out.
Yeah, I thought it came out in the 90s.
Tammy said, love your shirt, thank you. I thought I would do some Kubrick representation. This is one of 2 Kubrick shirts I have. I also have a Clockwork Orange one.
This is a great movie. This is the least Kubrickian of Kubrick's films.
It really is.
Yeah, there's not a lot of hidden messages in it or anything. But, having been in service, I was in service after this period. This would have been like from my dad's era. My dad was in Vietnam. And this movie basically checks out with Marine Corps for the time. And, the basic training experience was exactly like what we got. We had our own version of R. Lee Ermey. All right. His name was Drill Sergeant Brown. Big old black dude. Motherfucker was awesome. And then after basic training, got sent to fucking Korea. And guess who gets fucking deployed to our unit? Drill Sergeant Brown. And he ended up becoming a squad leader. And he was a fucking legend. He was a legend in basic training, and he was a legend in the unit. It was good to see him again. He pretended like he didn't remember any of us. He tried to wipe the slate clean. It was funny. But anyway, watching this movie, I was like, yeah, it's good. It's a great Vietnam movie. I don't know if it's as good, if it's as great as Apocalypse Now. There's very different kind of movies.
Did you know that R. Lee Ermey was also a consultant on Apocalypse Now?
You should, of course.
Yeah.
He was also in another.
He was just the go-to guy.
Yeah, he was also in another one that most people don't know called The Siege of Fireblaze Gloria. He was in that movie.
Yeah, he was in some movies prior. This wasn't the first movie that he'd done. But,
this one brought him into fame, though.
Yeah, I mean, and, obviously, like, even, like, later movies, like The Frighteners and stuff like that, where he essentially was playing this character, except, like, a dead version of it, which I thought was, like, really funny.
A lot of the stuff you see Ermey do is kind of ad-libbed. That wasn't really in the script. He had better ways to do it, because he really was a drill sergeant. So
During that era.
So he knew how it really was, how filthy the language really was. There's a lot of stuff about this movie that is awesome if you were ever in service. You know the culture. Now, Marine infantry and Army airborne infantry, they're similar culture. There are some differences. But, no, I just loved it. It's a good movie. I would say probably when it comes to kind of like... Apocalypse Now is not as accurate, all right, in terms of, like, history. It's based on a book that had nothing to do with Vietnam.
Yeah, like a fictional book that was updated to the Vietnam era.
Right. But with Apocalypse Now, the spiritual meaning behind that movie is very accurate. It's very, very much pro-warrior ethos. It wasn't pro-Vietnam. It was just pro-growth. And that's really what... that's really how Milius saw combat and military service. He really wanted to go, but he couldn't go. This one is different. This is Kubrick. Kubrick's trying to tell the story of how very average guys are slowly turned into killers, basically.
Yeah, that was kind of what interested him.
Right. Now, as a civilian, I think probably watching this, you would probably be a little more stunned by it. But being ex-military, we had a different take on it. So a lot of stuff that was shown, we kind of know how to handle it a little bit better. Like some of the things that were being said to the ears of a civilian, that might be very shocking. But to us, we would consider that to be kind of like military humor. Military humor is very gallows humor and real filthy. So you have guys who are fucking... basically almost like a married couple, and they're sitting there just fucking cussing each other out, using racial slurs and shit. It has nothing to do with hatred. Those dudes love each other. The same dudes that are saying that are out there trying to save him and gets killed to try to bring him back. It's just no holes barred. Especially that era. That era was even probably tougher than even the time that I was in.
Well, because you have to think, too, particularly during the Vietnam era, not everybody had chosen to be there.
No, a lot of
some
them
of those people were
into
drafted, yeah.
Right. And just, that era was a product of the thinking of World War III, you know? Same thing with the era that I was in. We were training for World War III, which was nuclear confrontation with the Soviet Union, along with massed armored columns, and Vietnam-style proxy warfare on a global level, where it might be jungles or forests, or you had to be ready for anything. And the mentality had nothing to do with of today. Today is kind of almost like law enforcement. We're going to go down there and be peaceful. No. It was basically kind of like attempted genocide. That was just the mentality, you know. We double tapped in the fucking kill zones. Everything was ambush, counter ambush, movement to contact, fucking raids, airborne operations. So the mentality of this era and in my era was very different than what you'd see today. Like, you targeted civilians. That's what you were supposed to do. You know, supposed to fight past the enemy army and fucking punish their civilians for letting those guys come into power, or you know, like, you know, we beat Germany because we just bombed their civilians. You know, same thing with Japan. Like 42 cities just leveled, men, women, children. That was just the whole idea of warfare. Because those people were all breeding and making soldiers and working in factories, and they were all part of the... There was no such thing as a civilian in the old mindset. Civilians were part of the enemy war effort. And this movie's really kind of about that, too. It brings that into... It was the first of the weird kind of fake wars, forever wars, like you have in Afghanistan, where they don't really intend to achieve anything. They just, we're going to come here and we're going to help you, and we're going to shoot these random people, and it'll all work out, but in the meantime, we're making money. And all that's kind of discussed in this movie in different ways. I liked the movie, though.
Louis was saying that that he knew somebody that was a Marine and said that this was really accurate. Probably the reason for that is that it's actually based on a novel called The Short Timers that was written by a Marine that was in Vietnam. And it's also kind of based on a nonfiction book by a dude named Michael Hare, who was a war correspondent during Vietnam and had written a nonfiction book about it. What Kubrick did is, I think he read The Short Timers and he loved it. Because honestly, I didn't realize, but this was like his second to last finished movie. Yeah. I mean, The Shining, he made The Shining in 1980, and then he didn't make another movie until this one. Yeah. And then after this one, he made Eyes Wide Shut in 1999, and then he died. So he only made like 3 movies, like in the last 20 years, which I didn't even realize. But this one's the first war movie that he made. He made one called Paths to Glory. Actually, I think even his first movie, what was that called? Fear and Desire, I think, was a war movie too, but he's since... kind of like didn't want that associated with his name anymore because he thought it wasn't that good. And Dr. Strangelove is kind of considered a war movie as well, even though that's kind of more of a dark comedy. But so what he did was he read the novel. He had been thinking about actually doing like a World War II, like Holocaust movie. And so that's initially what he was going to do. But then like when he started talking to Michael Hare, who had been a war correspondent for Esquire, I think, in Vietnam, and he's like, okay, well, no, let's do a Vietnam movie. And then what he did was he had Gustav Hasford, who was the guy that wrote The Short Timers, the novel, and Michael Hare, the guy that wrote the nonfiction Vietnam thing. He had them both write like a screenplay. But they didn't read what each other was writing. You know what I mean? And then he would take both versions and kind of like edit them into what he wanted, which I guess explains maybe why this movie is a little bit, it's almost like 2 short stories. You know what I mean? Sort of. They're like thematically similar, obviously, but it's kind of, I mean, the movie's kind of like in 2 parts. Like the first part is like basic training, and then the second part is Vietnam. Yeah,
that's because when you go into service, that's how you see your service, as in a bunch of episodes. Basic is very different.
Yeah, it's like episodic.
Yeah, so that's the way you actually... So you're experiencing it as if you were there. You see, there's one episode, that's basic training, and then when you get in country. And it's kind of left ambiguous at the end. They were getting ready to go home, but I guess they made it home.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I guess so.
They just ends up singing Mickey Mouse, which means bullshit in the service.
Yeah.
Because they knew what they were doing was kind of bullshit. It's still a great movie, though, you know what I mean? It was pretty accurate based on everything that I know and all the other stuff that I've read from that period and what the conflict was like. I've studied that conflict for all of my adult life and was in a lot of the famous units that were in that conflict. Now, there was another movie that came out. I think it came out when I was in service. I know I saw it in service, and I remember everybody talking about it. I was in service between 90 and 94. And to me, I remembered that and haven't seen it since then. I remembered it being super accurate. It was called Hamburger Hill. And I think it was about the 101st Airborne Division. I think it might have been about 327. I remember it was in a unit either I knew or a unit that I was in. And that one was also, if you like that one, if you like this one and Apocalypse Now, you'd probably like Hamburger Hill also.
I remember liking that one, but I haven't seen it since it came out. I might have seen that in the theater or maybe like a year after.
It's about air assault operations and what it was like. And that was more of like what my experience was like. You know, not so much the combat parts of it, but just the daily operations and how we did things. And just the lingo and everything and how people were and what they thought of things. Some of the stuff in this movie is not 100% accurate the way it would be. Like the scene where they find out that the sniper was a young girl, and then they had to think about what to do, and they and Joker finally decided he was gonna basically mercy kill her, and they were kind of like a big deal in real life if those guys that were there they would do that without even thinking about it. They just go up there.
Well, I think it
was for the impact on the audience.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. That was kind of like some dramatic license because I think it's really interesting because I think a lot of people maybe perceive the last scene where he kills that sniper girl. Yeah. You know, because she's down there saying, "Shoot me, shoot me." Yeah. And shoots her out of mercy. But I think a lot of people perceive, that's how Joker like lost his humanity because he was supposed to be like the only one left that had any. But I was watching like another interpretation of this, and they said, no, that's not exactly what it is. That was a mercy killing. Yeah. They're like the other guy, Animal Mother, wanted to like leave her there and let her suffer.
Let her die. Right, yeah.
So actually Joker like maintained his humanity because he's like, we can't leave her like that.
Humanity
and then
was to put her out of her misery.
Right, exactly. So it was actually like not... Joker's like humanity is gone now. It's quite the opposite, actually.
No, they clarified it. That's what I was saying. Some of the things I think are misunderstood by civilians. Animal Mother and the other guys, as soon as they found her, they said, well, there's nothing we can do for her. They actually mean that. They couldn't even get a tank to come help them.
Yeah.
So she was going to die anyway. You could sit there and just let her die. That might take 15 minutes. It might take a half hour. But medevac wasn't coming. All right? She was going to die. If you were to just plug her, she would have, you're putting her out of her misery. So you would save her fucking 15 minutes of fucking slowly choking to death.
Well, because she was fucked up.
She was fucked up. And she killed 3 dudes. They wouldn't let her live.
Yeah.
That's just not going to happen. By rights, if they were really pissed off, they would have cut her head off while she was still alive. Well,
they said that was actually shot, but they didn't show it.
Picked her up and beat on her a little bit.
That Animal Mother was supposed to just like cut her head off and be like, see, no big deal, you know what I mean? Like that. Which would have hammered it home, but I think it would have been a little too... Yeah. Kubrick thought it would be a little too much. They did shoot it, though. Yeah,
one of the probably more likely things they would have done is gone over there and just kicked the shit out of her while she was dying for a little while and just let her die. That was probably more... Because they, we say, oh, that's terrible. The whole fucking thing was terrible. She just killed 3 of your friends. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you're frustrated. There's nothing else you can do about it. You're being asked to do some shit that's just an impossible task. The war is not going to be won.
No one really seemed to know exactly what was going on.
Nope.
You know what I mean? It was a giant fucking clusterfuck shit show.
That's another thing.
All rolled into one thing.
Yeah, that's another thing that a lot of civilian watchers or viewers of this sometimes have a hard time getting a grasp on. You could meet soldiers in these theaters that wouldn't know what was going on. They just got there.
That's not surprising. That does not surprise me at all.
Yep, nobody's told them anything. They're just in a pack going, I don't know where we're going. What's going on? Yeah, they don't even know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
And the guy leading them probably doesn't really know all that much. He's just told to go to a certain location. He doesn't know why. Another thing that was common is that the average person did not know the rules of engagement. That means that they didn't know what the rules were for shooting somebody or not. It was just kind of this vague, nebulous idea. You will deliver a body count. If you kill the enemy, we'll win. We are expected to kill X amount of enemies per week. And you go, well, who is the enemy? And they go, find the enemy. You don't know what the enemy is.
So some of them just started shooting civilians and shit.
Yeah, so weird rumors would start. Well, if they run from you, they're enemies. Shoot them. Nah, that wasn't always what it was either. You know what I mean? A person could just run because they saw helicopters and got scared. It was just another South Korean, you know? Or excuse me, South Vietnamese. Another one would be black pajamas. If you've seen those black pajamas, that's VC. Man, half the damn people were wearing black pajamas. It didn't have anything to do with VC. Yeah, the VC wore black pajamas.
But
that was just their work clothes. That was just their work clothes. It'd be like saying, if you see a dude wearing jeans, he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
You know, they were all wearing jeans.
Yeah.
So a lot of them didn't know the rules of engagement, and if they followed the rules of engagement, they'd never get any kills, and if they weren't getting kills, they'd get punished. Because they had to kill the enemy, and they couldn't find the enemy. That was the problem.
Yeah, like I said, it was a gigantic clusterfuck.
Right. And then Arvin was with them. The South Vietnamese army, they were with them, and they were had their eyes on ethnic cleansing, too. Because they were ethnic groups were fighting over land. So they were kind of encouraging the U.S. Army, hey, the bad guys must be these guys. Kill those guys. We don't like them. Go kill those guys. Shit like that was going on.
Well, and I think that's one thing that Full Metal Jacket does, particularly the second half of it, really does capture. And Gramthars Hammer pointed this out too, pointing out like the absurdity of war. Perhaps not as good as like Dr. Strangelove did, but that seemed to be something that Kubrick was always really fascinated by. Not only the absurdity, but also like the inhumanity of it.
Yeah.
Because he made a lot of movies with that type of theme to it. And this one has that too.
Yeah, but you got to go to Apocalypse Now to understand that war is not absurd. What's absurd is the way governments are asking you to fight wars.
Well, that's kind of what I meant.
These are industrial wars.
Yeah.
It's like asking McDonald's to go out and win the damn war. It's not about, especially in this era, it wasn't about finesse or generalship or finding the enemy and trying to solve the problem so the war is in. It's more like, we believe there's 30,000 enemies. If you kill X amount of enemies a week, we'll be out of here in 5 years. Go do it. That's what they think. You know what I mean? So you're asking basically a dumb, big corporation to try to get something done that would take a bunch of social skill and that's what Special Forces was all about. To try to find where everybody was and what they wanted, that kind of shit, how to deal with them. This type of warfare was obsolete even back then.
Yeah.
All right. And they're still trying to use it today. This type of warfare doesn't really work. What works is what they would call today terrorism. That works, but not this. And that's what Apocalypse Now was about. Willard became a warrior when he realized you had to take all that shit off, just put fucking body paint on and take a machete and cut that dude's head off. He was the one that was responsible for it. Not everybody else.
Yeah.
That type of deal. And they had to kill Willard. Willard had to kill Colonel Kurtz because Colonel Kurtz had figured out that the war was a scam and you could just do it basically like a tribal terrorism type shit, and he was getting results that the army could never get. So they had to get rid of him because they didn't want the war to end. They wanted it to continue so they could make career points. War is tribal, it's primitive, and it's genocide. That'll work. All this other shit won't work. Don't do it. Don't do it unless you're gonna do it. That's the moral of it. Just like Mr. Miyagi said, you walk on one side of the road or the other side of the road. You don't walk down in the middle of the road, you get squashed. It's that same basic idea. Don't wage war unless you're willing to go all the way. And it's fucking brutal.
Yeah, let's talk about R. Lee Ermey for a minute because so as most people know, he was actually brought on as a consultant because I guess he kind of he'd been in movies prior to this and had played drill sergeant type characters. But he'd also been a consultant on several other war films, including Apocalypse Now. So he was contacted by Stanley Kubrick, who just initially wanted him to be a consultant and to essentially be the drill sergeant for the actors that were going to play, like, you know, do what a drill sergeant would do and, like, you know, get him up in a line. But he wasn't initially supposed to play the part. The dude that was supposed to play the part was the guy that ended up playing, like, the helicopter gunner that was shooting down all the random civilians that were, like, running around. He ended up playing that guy because when they brought Arlie Ermy in there, and he started doing his drill sergeant thing and, like, you know, yelling at him. And most of that was, like, ad-libbed. Finally, they were just kind of like, okay, well, he should just be in the movie because he's, like, fucking great. You know what I mean?
I'm getting questions here. Question for Tom. Did your DI ever punch you in the gut during basic training as hard as the gun he punched Joker? Okay. You have to understand something. When you first go into basic training, there's a lot of guys in there that aren't going to make it. Those dudes basically are driven out of there in their first few weeks. Most of the guys who are left want to be there. They're starting to incorporate into a unit. The drill sergeant is part of that situation. By the time all the riffraff's out of there, your relationship with the drill sergeant is fucking very strange. It's kind of almost like S&M. He's punishing you, but he's making you stronger. You kind of like him. They have a lot of character, charisma. There's kind of a cult mentality starts going. I've had my drill sergeant step on my hands, like while I was down doing push-ups. But it wasn't for me, it was so the other recruits could see it. So he could kind of be impressive. Technically, that wasn't legal. But am I going to rat him out? Hell no, I'm not going to rat him out. We're on the same team. In the day that this is supposed to be taking place, could a drill sergeant punch you? Yeah, they could punch you. And you had to just take it like a man. The thing is, those Joker wouldn't have ratted him out. Besides, what are they going to do? You know what I mean? He was probably drafted. Well, no, I think at this time Marines only took volunteers. It could have been drafted. You might have been drafted and then you can volunteer for the Marines. I'm not sure exactly how they did it.
Yeah, they didn't really bring up if any of them had been drafted. Like, none of them openly said. Like, all of them seem to have chosen to be there.
And then you asked me how many low IQ piles were there. We had some, but they're some of the first ones to go. But in those first few weeks. One of them name was Scott. I remember him. And Scott was worse than that. But he was out in about 2 weeks. But we laughed about him. He was fucking funny. We got punished and everything just like the show for Scott. But the drill sergeants keep them around to use them as kind of like a training tool. They know those guys aren't going to make it. So they just use them as a tool to use against the platoon. And then they kind of use them as kind of like fucking comedy props for a while. And then they get rid of them. The thing is about Pyle, in the Pyle character in this, that wasn't a normal situation. That was something, you can look this up, I'm not lying. This was called McNamara's Morons. Robert McNamara came up with a brilliant idea that you could take mentally challenged people and draft them and it would be good for them. Their survival rate in the service was extremely low, and for a lot of different reasons. If they ever made it into the field and they went into a frontline infantry unit and they started going on patrols, they were mostly killed within a couple of patrols. And I think a lot of times friendly fire. They made too much noise. They were not trainable. They were a risk to the unit. So the first time they ever had enemy contact, the guy next to him plugged him in the back of the head usually. And that saved trouble later on because they would compromise you. Some of them they couldn't whisper, or, they just weren't. That was basically like McNamara should have been punished for that shit. That was a crime against humanity.
Yeah, that's pretty fucked up.
That would be like drafting children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and they kind of, in this, they kind of show Pyle was very much had a child's mentality. Yeah. He didn't really know how to lace his boots.
Yeah.
They had a scene where Joker was like buttoning his shirt for him and stuff, and he was saying, I need help and all this other stuff. And, they kind of keep him around because he can't, he doesn't have any self-control. He steals the jelly donut and then everybody gets punished and then everybody starts hating him and starts beating on him.
Yeah.
I don't think that the drill sergeant, maybe he didn't know that
Oh, he knew.
But no, I mean, I was gonna say, I don't know if he knew, like, in the context of the movie, that pushing him that far would get him killed. You know what I mean?
No, he didn't know that. No.
That's what I was gonna say.
Those guys usually wash out. You know what I mean?
He probably just thought, well, he's not going to be here long. He didn't think, oh, he's going to shoot me and then shoot himself in the head.
That was the only
alert.
thing, and I mentioned it during watching the movie. I said, because Drill Sergeant started doubling down. I will make you into a Marine. You know, and he kept pushing him harder. I will make you into a Marine. Man, when our drill sergeants did that to one of those kind of guys, it was mostly just, they didn't actually mean that. They knew that those dudes wouldn't make it. They just wanted to keep them in there for a couple more days and use them as a training tool and as a bad example of how not to be, and to use them as a cudgel against the rest of the guys, to beat the rest of the guys into a fucking group. You're creating a little mafia. It was called a cohort platoon, and I was one of them. I was in one of the first cohort platoons. Then once the cohort platoon is done, it then gets sent to a unit all at once. So you can't run from a bad reputation. Wherever you go, those same guys you went through basic training know you, which actually ends up being a good thing. Because if you're good, then they know you. If you're bad, you can get rid of the bad apples. You can't, you know what I mean? Because everybody knows each other. You don't really want a situation where nobody knows each other.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Karen Robb says, Jenny, that overlooked top is my fave. Thank you very much. Louis says, my friend, who was a Marine in Vietnam, failed the eye exam multiple times, so he memorized it. He really wanted to go to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Well, how did that work out? I mean, did he come back? I know most
guys did.
Some of my uncles were in Vietnam.
Yeah, most guys did.
Did anyone in your platoon screw up and get fragged with bars of soap in socks? As you see in this movie.
Yeah, we had a dude named Sturcio that kept fucking up like that. I can't remember. That was Cake Day. We got punished on Cake Day. He stole an extra thing of cake. He was a skinny dude.
So just like Pyle did.
Yeah, but he didn't bring it into the barracks
and put it in his foot locker.
He got a piece of cake and put a bowl over it, and then got another piece of cake and ate 2 pieces of cake. And the drill sergeant saw that, and fucking he woke us up at like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, now you're all in trouble because the extra piece of cake.
We were fucking dead tired. And fucking had us all down there in PT clothes. And Foreman said, you might want to know why y'all motherfuckers are out here at 3 o'clock in the morning. I can't say everything he said, I get banned. Because they're using racial slurs.
Yeah, which you see in
homosexual type slurs.
Yeah.
And he goes, y'all faggots are this and that and this and that, because you know what today is? The sun is not up yet. That sun's going to burn you up. Going to burn your asses up. Today is Cake Day. Like, what? Sturcio got 2 cakes. Front center, Sturcio, how many cakes did you get? I had 2 cakes. Stop shaking. How many cakes did you get? What flavors were the cakes? One of them with chocolate, and the other one had the damn rainbow sprinkles, didn't it? Rainbow sprinkles on the cake. Today is motherfucking Cake Day. And you will regret the days that you were born. And he fucking grass drilled us for about 3 hours, man. And then all day, all we heard was, Sturcio is so good that he can have 2 pieces of cake. And it just, man, that shit went on and on. Just, he beat us up all fucking day. That night, fucking, they threw a fucking mattress on top of Sturcio, and everybody fucking jumping up and down on the mattresses and shit.
So very similar situation.
Similar, yeah. Yeah, jumping up and down on the mattress with him in there. He's crying and shit. Stop crying! Somebody slapped him. Cake-ass motherfucker. Just shit like.
Did you just call him Cake from then on out?
No. But then, like, fucking, he went to Korea with us. He made it, and fucking that shit was all under the bridge, a couple months later. But he was still like a civilian at that time. Because you haven't made that transition. But no, it was ruthless. Real ruthless.
Yeah, so like I said, so it was a very...
But everybody knows each other at this point.
Yeah.
And you're now about a month into it, and most of the guys that aren't going to make it have already fallen out. There might only be like 4 or 5 maybes in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of them are gone. Some of them are gone in the first few days, and you never even saw them go. You just come back and fucking the bed next to you is fucking made, and it doesn't have the name, and it just says fucking, I think it said ETS or ELS, early leave. The ELS sign was that motherfucker's gone. So you just come back, and some of them are gone. You don't even know what happened. But you're so confused the first week, you're not even really sure what the fuck's going on. Yeah, you can't take it all in.
Yeah. Now, this might have been the guy that plays Pyle. Obviously, he got very famous later on. Vincent D'Onofrio.
That's right.
This might have been his first movie because he was saying that he got down because I think when Kubrick was making this, because we watched like the extra stuff because we have like the Blu-ray. So we watched like the documentary about it, and they said Kubrick was just basically taking open audition tapes. Now there were some actors that he approached. I think he wanted Anthony Michael Hall as Joker, interestingly. But I think, and they were like in, because I think at that time Anthony Michael Hall was still underage or he had just turned 18. Mm-hmm. So his dad was his manager, so they went through this big rigmarole. And then finally he was just kind of like, I don't know, like Kubrick takes so long, like to make a movie, which this one did as well. It took like fucking 2 years or something. And he's like, you know, I'm too young. I don't really want to get involved in something that's going to take that much time out of my life. So he didn't end up doing it. I think Val Kilmer got asked and he didn't do it. So when Matthew Modine got cast, I guess that Matthew Modine was friends with Vincent D'Onofrio, who at that time was working as a bar bouncer, right? And so he's like, hey, why don't you come down and audition? And the guy, you know, Kubrick loved it, but he's like, how do you feel about gaining a bunch of weight? Because they said, you know, Vincent D'Onofrio at the time was like, he's a big dude, but he was like pretty slim, you know what I mean? So he ended up having to put on 80 pounds. He said he put on 30, and they said that still you don't look fat enough. So he was basically like, so he ended up having to put on like 80 pounds, and then it took him like almost a year to get it back off, like after because he had to stay fat the whole time they were shooting the movie, which took like a really long time. Yeah. And another thing that blew my mind too, which I didn't know, because we were even thinking that we were watching the film, and because Tom's like, gee, I wonder where they shot this, because that looks like a real location. This bitch is all shot in England. Yeah. The whole entire thing. Because, you know, Kubrick famously, he hated to fly, which, you know, I feel that. So he didn't really want to go far from his house, like, to make a movie. So he found this place in East London that was kind of like all that they were going to tear down, and they were going to, like, you know, rip up this whole fucking place. And he's like, oh, can we, like, knock the buildings down and blow it up and shit? And they were like, yeah, sure, go ahead. So they just let him have this whole thing and these fields. He, like, shipped in some fucking palm trees and shit like that, so it would look like Vietnam. And then, like, all the interiors, I think they filmed some of it at Pinewood Studios, but I think, like, a lot of the interiors were shot in, like, British Army barracks and stuff like that. So a lot of it was, like, real shit. But when he said that all the outdoor scenes, like in that big fucking firefight at the end with the sniper and everything, was shot like in East London, that just blew my mind. I never would have guessed that in a million years. It totally does not look like England by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, Gramthars Hammer said they brought in 40 palm trees to make it look tropical. Yeah. The Wikipedia page says that he actually ordered this big, huge plastic jungle, like from California. But then when it got there, he was like, I don't like it. He didn't like it when he saw it in person. So it's like they couldn't use it and throw it out. So they had to like bring in a bunch of real palm trees.
Yeah, he ended up playing a masterpiece character later on in Daredevil. He played the Kingpin, and that was like one of the best.
I love Vincent D'Onofrio. I love him and everything.
Yeah, that was his fucking tour de force there, man. Kingpin.
He was so good.
I bought that character. It was like, yeah, that's him. That's Kingpin.
Yeah. But yeah, he's just really, really great in this. And I mean, everybody is pretty great in this. Yeah. Oh, I wanted to say too, like on the documentary on this, like the making of, Arlie Ermey tells this funny fucking story about, do you know what story I'm about to tell? About him driving around with Stanley Kubrick. Yeah. So it's Stanley Kubrick, and was Stanley Kubrick's wife in the car too? Yeah, so it was like his wife's SUV. And so I guess like Stanley is driving around like showing Arlie Ermey like all the locations, like we're gonna shoot this over here and this over here. And Lee Ermey is saying that Stanley Kubrick was like so focused on like, and there's gonna be this big thing and all this other kind of stuff, that he legit like drove the SUV into a ditch, rolled it, and then climbs out the side, like he opens the door up the top and climbs out, and like nothing happened. And then he's like, and then he didn't even break character. He's like, okay, now come on, now we're doing this. Yeah.
He's very focused.
He fucking drove a car.
He's like, what the hell's going on?
He's like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And like, you know, Stanley's acted like absolutely nothing is amiss. He just like clambers out of this fucking rolled SUV and then just keeps on talking.
They were saying that Hamburger Hill came out in 87.
So the same year as this.
Yeah. I saw it when I was in service. I wasn't sure when it came out. I don't remember how I saw it. I guess I saw it on VHS. But we used to talk about it all the time. I want to see it again.
I wouldn't mind seeing it again too because I saw it a long time ago.
I'd seen them both, and I remember Hamburger Hill. Me saying, "No, that was more accurate, at least compared to my Army service." And I believe it was 327 Infantry is what that movie's about. And that was the unit I was in. I was in 1st 327 Recon Platoon. And I think that might have been about for 1327. It might have been about 50 Deuce. So I have to go back and look. The regiments are all pretty much all the same. 50 Deuce, 187, 327. 506 was in there for a while, but it got sent to Korea and then it got moved back. I was in 506 when it was in Korea. But I remembered that movie being spot on, just with the way the equipment looked, the way guys talked. It was just, like I said, it was 87 when they filmed it. There might have been a lot of the 80s in it, and I was caught the tail end of the 80s, so it could be the guys that trained those actors to do that. They kind of embedded in them a lot of the mannerisms that we had from my time. Because it didn't really sound 60s. It sounded late 80s. So, you know what I mean? They'd have been trained by guys in the late 80s. I do remember that all those guys basically went through a basic training to go to be in the movie Hamburger Hill.
Yeah. Well, it's just similar to what they did in this movie, too, because like I said, that's why they brought Lee Ermey on. It's like essentially he's made the actors do like a boot camp type situation.
Yeah. I remember that their fucking weapon skills, the way they handled their weapons and shit was just spot on. Everything was just the way they wore their uniforms, everything. The way they did shit in the field, because a lot of stuff that we would do in the field, you know, it was all hand fabricated using fucking 100 mile an hour tape and fucking 550 cord, and we would rig things up because there's a lot of stuff that we needed to do. There wasn't an aftermarket accessories for the stuff, so we had to make things, you know. We had to make a lot. We were moving fucking pockets off of fucking old shirts and putting them up on the sleeves. We have extra pockets, and now you can BDUs come with shit like that. But we used to have to hand sew a lot of stuff on what they would issue us. It was badass. We were the shit back then. Fucking right. We were the shit. We had to make all our own shit. Custom fucking uniforms.
Damn you kids today.
Fucking kids.
No one just
buying uniforms.
No one just cool.
Get promoted and fucking stitch. Come into the fucking barracks and cut out a piece of fucking uniform material and sit there with a hand sewing machine fucking with his foot like that and make your ranks and your fucking nameplates and your tags. You can make it by hand. It'd be perfect. The Korean dude, we just call him Stitch. If you needed any insignia, he'd make it by hand for like a couple bucks. It looked like it was done by a computer. That's how fucking tight it was. And we taking those things back to the States and like, man, where was that made? This is handmade in Korea. It was just fucking perfect. Guys would try to buy it from you.
Yeah.
The script, the fonts were fucking great. Yeah. These guys are masters.
Mike said Hamburger Hill gets forgotten about because Platoon and Full Metal Jacket. Yeah, they all kind of came out around the same time. Because I remember that. It was almost kind of like, oh my god, there's like all these fucking similar war movies. That's probably why. Louis says, according to Wikipedia, 3rd Battalion, 187th Infantry.
187, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. The good unit. Rakasans.
I totally... Rewatching this movie, like I said, I probably saw this movie I might have seen it in the theater, although I feel like I probably saw it on video in the late 80s, maybe. So like a year or two after it came out, because, you know, I really liked Kubrick, so I would have watched it. I had forgotten how much of the dialogue in this movie, particularly Lee Ermey stuff, has really seeped into the public consciousness. Yeah. And it's like, it was funny because like we were watching it and like so many of the lines were familiar, and plus like they make a lot of jokes about it on like Mystery Science Theater too. I think they did like they've made a lot of references to this movie on MST, and they even did like a couple little, even like in the host segments and stuff, they had one where Crow was being essentially Lee Ermey and was saying some of the stuff that he said in the movie. You know, and the whole thing about him saying like, what is your major malfunction and all this, like, oh my god, my dad used to say that like all the time. Yeah. Which kind of like cracked me up. It was like, you know, how tall he was, like 5'9" or whatever. I didn't know they piled shit that high or whatever. So it's like I had just forgotten how much of this.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that Ermey says that I think a civilian wouldn't understand, like when he's telling everybody before advanced rifle marksmanship class, you know, about, you know, who is Lee Harvey Oswald, who is, you know, Charles Whitman, you know, and they're going, what do they have in common? They were Marines, and he killed 15 people, you know. One day when you're done here, you'll be able to do the same. that was humor. You know, they don't laugh because you're just, it's just not the mentality you're in. But I think some people would think that might be some kind of like damn, they're trying to train dudes into psychos, or what's fucking going on here? The military had a real fucking crazy, dry sense of humor about certain things. It'd be either real super dry or real super wet. You were just supposed to know, yeah. It was kind of irony, you know what I mean? It's like, and that was.
But the thing about it though is like we watched that scene and then like he tells me, he's like, that's humor. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, because I thought it was funny because I have like a really dark sense of humor.
Right.
It's fucked up, but it's also hilarious. It was hilarious the way that he
it's like,
that he delivered
like
it was
a
like
great thing.
Was like super funny.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
The
Really
candidates
funny.
would have thought it was funny too. You know.
The funny thing was, the first thing he asked was like if anybody knew who Charles Whitman was, and nobody did. He's like, none of you dumbasses know who Charles Whitman is. So like one guy finally like
one dude
stands up.
said, and then fucking Lee Harvey Oswald says, "Is that dude that shot from the book Suppository?" And
the book
laughing.
Suppository.
And he goes, "All right, now settle down." Suppository.
The book Suppository. Well, you know what? I think what made me. I mean, Lee Ermey was like a fucking national treasure. That dude is like so fucking awesome.
He was great in The Frighteners too.
Yeah, and he was he's essentially playing like the same character, almost like a parody.
I got a plot of dirt out here with your name on it.
Yeah.
My turn duty is another 87 years.
I think my favorite scene, I mean, of all the Lee Ermey that's in this, which is just never enough Lee Ermey, my favorite thing, I think, is when he goes down, when it's Christmas, and he's singing Happy Birthday to Jesus. Yeah, oh my God, that makes me laugh so hard.
He was looking for shit to fuck with people. You don't believe in the Virgin Mary? What the fuck?
Yeah, he wanted the head so clean that Virgin Mary would be proud to go in there and take a dump.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guarantee you that fucking drill sergeant didn't give a shit about Virgin Mary. It's just something they just fuck with you.
Well, yeah, something they wanted to say. It's just kind of like, but yeah, he's just like, I'm so glad they let him be this. I feel bad for like the dude that was originally cast in that role, and then they were like, here, have this consolation prize role instead, where you just get to shoot women and children from a helicopter and like yell about it. But you know, this movie would not have been the same without Lee Ermey being the drill sergeant in it. I mean,
they recognize that he took that role from the dude who played the door gunner.
He essentially did. Yeah. He kind of, and there's an interview, like I said, there's a pretty extended interview with him, like on the Blu-ray extras. And he doesn't straight out say that he stole the role, but he did. He was kind of like, well, he didn't use that word, but the way he talked about it, he was like being funny about it. And he's just like, yeah, I decided I kind of wanted it. So it's just like he sort of insinuated himself into.
Well, he made sure Kubrick saw him doing his thing.
Saw him doing it, yeah. And so
he was the right man for the job. I mean, he was.
Yeah.
The only thing that I had to say is that the senior drill instructor now. Ermey was already retired by that period. Mm-hmm. He's far too old to be your fucking senior drill sergeant. They're not that old. Most of them are still guys in their 20s. Yeah. They're just very good at what they're doing. Because they have to run with you and do... They can't ask you to do anything that they can't do. Yeah. So usually they are doing what they are telling you to do. Like sometimes they just fucking make you do a shit ton of push-ups. Sometimes they're doing the push-ups with you. Yeah. You know, so... They had, and you know, if they're running you to death. So they're in real good shape.
I did laugh at him calling Pyle a disgusting fat body.
Oh yeah.
That made me laugh.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Fat shaming, fucking right.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that was.
I don't know. The word "fat body" was just like as one word was just very funny to me.
All the fat boys, boy, they fucking focused right in on you.
Well, anything that was gonna like make you stand out or like make you, then they're gonna like
anything that would make you stand out. And they would just, you are a fat piece of fucking shit. I'll never let you in the army. They try to break your fucking spirit right away, because they don't want to waste any time. But if they see you double your efforts, and you know what I mean, you actually keep it up, because there were fat guys that fucking made it. One of them was a dude named Tibbler, and he ended up being an E5. He was a great dude. He was overweight. But not when he was done. A year into it, he was strapped, and he ended up being an NCO. And I think he made it through Ranger School.
Well, shit.
He was a badass. Yeah,
just goes to show.
Yeah, he was he's about my size, a couple inches taller, but he was fucking 20 pounds heavier, easily fat, and he fucking was a beast. They turned him into a beast, and it is that cruelty that does it. You think that's not an effective training method? Hell yes, it is.
Well, obviously it is.
It gets it over. They get it. You're sitting on top of a fence like that. You're either going to fall one way or the other. All right, depending on how you react to what they do. So they try to push you off that fence to see which way you fall right away. You know, if you quit, you're out. If you don't quit, they'll keep you around and they'll see. Do you keep doubling down? Do you keep doubling down? It's not talk, you have to deliver. So they just keep fucking with you and fucking with you and fucking with you. About halfway through it, they know who's going to make it. They still fuck with you, though. It's just the fucking with becomes funnier.
Yeah.
And not as hostile. It's funny, though. It's good. They know exactly what they're doing.
Gramthars Hammer said, I used to not be able to watch the suicide scene after responding to an execution-style homicide. Gunshot to head, blood splatter all over the wall, just like the movie.
Yeah.
Probably had PTSD all the time. Yeah, I could see that, like, having seen something like that in real life. I don't think I would want to, like, watch a movie with it. But that's a pretty fucked up scene to watch. It's funny because, like I said, I saw this movie probably, like, 20, 30 years ago. And I had remembered... Isn't this weird? I had remembered Pyle shooting himself. I remembered that. But I didn't remember that he shot the drill sergeant first.
Oh, you didn't remember that?
Totally forgotten.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why I forgot that. I remembered him committing suicide. Yeah. But it's just like, because I didn't remember that much about the movie. I remembered kind of like Matthew Modine's Born to Kill thing and the peace sign. Yeah. I remembered the prostitute stuff. I remembered like some of the characters like vaguely, but I don't know why that's like just...
What was funny is
maybe because I was sad that it's like, oh, Arlie Ermey's out of the movie now, so I blocked it out.
I remember seeing that for the first time when he shot the drill sergeant. I know that it was for dramatic effect, but knowing the culture, it would have been more likely he'd just shot himself.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised, even though those dudes might be fucking glitching out, which I have seen them glitch out, and they immediately fucking usher him out of there. Fucking, they'll grab baseball bats and 3 or 4 of the damn fucking drill sergeants, because there's 3 of them. Usually. The senior one and then 2 other ones. They'll fucking run at the dude. You get in there. They'll chase him out. Yelling at him. Because they're afraid the dude will turn and attack.
Yeah.
And then you never see the guy again. We only had like 2 or 3 of those. But those are all within the first week.
Yeah. So it does happen.
Yeah. But they don't have any weapons. They don't give you any weapons until they're way trust of you. You're already on a team by the time.
Yeah, because I kind of feel. Well, see, what ended up happening with Pyle in the movie was that he started out as like kind of a dim bulb, and then it seemed like he kind of got whipped into shape. Like he was actually becoming like a good shot, and like he seemed to get his shit together. Yeah, but. It was all kind of like, I guess it was like a ruse, or
it was a ruse.
It was not a ruse because I don't think he was supposed to be smart enough.
Running in a red. He was maxing out, but the thing is that was, from my experience, that's also unlikely. They usually don't get much better. You know what I mean? Like the guys that are like that can't get better. It's not within them. They're usually gone pretty quick. Some guys will get better because they weren't trying in the very beginning. That's another thing. Yeah. But they know there's types. They're fucking. They know exactly what kind of recruit they're dealing with. Usually. Yeah. Yeah. You'd be surprised. People aren't as much of, especially at that age. They're not as special as you think you are. There's a lot of people like you. They know what type you are. So they know usually they usually know the what do you call it? The not the OGIF. What do you call it? The trajectory. They know the trajectory of a recruit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, once you've had that much experience with that, with people, it's like you can learn to recognize and slot them into.
I'm pretty sure they're trained to recognize types, personality types. That there's probably like 7 or 8 different basic types, and then once they're done with you, there's only about 3 or 4 types. So because the other ones are eliminated. But it's still a good movie. What I thought was unlikely is that if the dude, first of all, you can't get hold of your weapon; it's locked up. So I don't know how he got hold of his weapon. And ammo weapons are stored far apart and they're locked up. So him being able to get hold of a loaded weapon just because he wanted it, nah, not even in that era. But if he did somehow get a hold of his weapon and his ammo, he probably just would have shot himself, not the drill sergeant. You'd be surprised because they're, in a way, the guys who are failing are fucking terrified of the dude. And one of the main things they're terrified of is they're terrified of disappointing the dude. That seems to be like the main thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not like, I can see that. It's not like they're being terrorized in the same way. they don't want to get in trouble and they don't want to disappoint the fucking drill sergeant. That's really what, like, one of, that's something that they don't fucking really talk about that much. He's not so much of as an alien outside force as you think. Within days, you're trying to live up to the demands. You know? You're trying to be there. You're not trying to go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, Gramthars Hammer said the very next scene after the suicide scene was the hooker scene.
Yeah.
It really was like kind of this.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, I think everybody knows this, but like that whole scene with the hooker talking to Joker and the other guy.
Yeah.
You know, with her being like, you know, me so horny, me love you long time. You know, that's where they got
it's all standard shit.
Well, that's where they got like that's where Two Live Crew got that song from. Which, fun fact, I graduated from high school in 1990, and you know, I don't know if they do this anymore, but you used to be able to like vote on like the senior song and the senior colors and blah blah blah. And the song that won, or you vote wise, was Me So Horny.
Yeah, they would.
And the school was like, yeah, no, we're not having that.
Yeah.
But that was the one that I didn't vote for that. But it's like,
they would though.
But yeah, but I'm like, yeah, that figures. Like, knowing the people I went to high school with. Like, that doesn't surprise me one bit. The school was like, no. They made us actually have Let the Good Times Roll by the Cars, which, like, didn't even come out that year. Yeah. That was older. So I'm like, that's dumb. Most of us were trying to get, because we were all goth kids, we were trying to get Love Song by The Cure, but I guess that didn't get enough votes, or they didn't know about that song or whatever. But yeah, they were just mad because so many people picked Me So Horny. Although that would have been really, really funny if they'd, like, let us have that.
Yeah, all that, get the fuck off my obstacle. Yeah, that's fucking right on. That's exactly. Fuck you doing up there? You know, that kind of shit. You jacking off up there? Come on down, you fucking do it. Oh, it's fucking funny. The thing is, though, is that ladder that they had him climbing, that was the easy one. That one was just little 2x, like, boards. The ones we had actually, that wasn't Sand Hill. That was at Fort Campbell. That was at the Air Assault School. That's right. So it wasn't basic. It was Air Assault School. But it was like a ladder like that, but it was made out of big round logs. And as you went up, they got further and further apart. So those last two, me being 5'6", you had to get up on the side, stand up. And if you reached up like that, you could barely grab it. So you had to jump and get your hands locked up around it like that, and then put your feet on it, and then you had to do two like that. But by the time you were up there, man, you were over 3 stories in the air. I mean, you literally could die if you fell. Now, the ground underneath there was sawdust, so you'd survive it. So
you might break some bones, though.
Yeah, you might break some bones on the way down. But you had to climb up one side, get at the very top one, and then rotate over and then climb down. I don't know if it's that high anymore. That was like...
Man, my little 5'3" ass would have a hard time with that shit.
Yeah, that was the thing. They were running girls through that course, too. And some of them didn't make it over. But the thing is that obstacle was not like a make or break obstacle. You could fail that obstacle and still pass the school.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Because like I said, there's only so much. Like if you're short as I am, there's just no way that anybody could jump that high.
Yeah, I think you could fail one obstacle, and that's the one where all the girls failed on that one if they were short. You know what I mean?
Because like I said, I can only jump so high. You know what I mean? It's like I'm a little person.
Right.
Not a literal little person, but I'm like.
A lot of them wouldn't try it. They'd get up there and they go, "There's no way." And they go, "Come on back down here. Come on down here."
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm not getting up there.
Right. But the ones underneath it were, in comparison, as hard for them as it would be for me to get on that one. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Because they slowly, as you went up, they got wider.
They got wider, yeah.
So they already went through a couple that they had to basically jump.
Yeah. Yep. Little shrimpy girls.
Yeah.
Oh well. Private Pile, get off my obstacle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's all kinds of fucking funny shit, man. It's so funny. If I had somebody, I'm still in contact with a lot of guys that fucking went to basic with, and they'll fucking throw out something that's, it'll just fucking give you a flashback. I remember exactly. Man.
What'd you say makes you remember, or because you burped?
No, because I remembered.
Oh, okay.
I remember waking up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, had Drill Sergeant Shiree, who was not our drill sergeant, it was a drill sergeant from another platoon. He came in there and fucked with us, because our platoon was moving ahead of his platoon. So he wanted to cost us some sleep. And how he did it is he went in there and found the wall locker. Or they had the fire guards. And there got 2 guys that have to stay up at all times. And I think it's to make sure nobody's fucking sneaking out. Nobody's running away or something. I don't know. Could be just to fuck with you because you got to pull security. And it goes down the beds. So you never get a full night's sleep. You're going to have to do some kind of guard shift. So you never get a full night's sleep. And it's only 6 hours of sleep anyway. So it's broken. Always broken. I woke up. And he had them fucking crawling on all fours, one behind the other behind him, while he went around and checked all the wall lockers to make sure that they were locked, because he found one of them that was unlocked.
Was there a jelly donut?
And here's the thing that was fucking funny, is he didn't go to the fucking wall lockers in order. He hit a couple over here, and then he'd walk them over to the other side, he hit some over there, and then come back. So he's doing the shit in a star pattern to get all of them. That way they had to fucking bear crawls, we call it. They had to bear crawl like about 7 times the distance that they would if they just kind of went.
If they just went,
because they had to go all. If they just got on a straight line, so they had to go all around. And the whole time he's going, pulling down on those things, and he's yelling at the top of his lungs. Oh, this one's locked. Oh, it's locked. Maybe you did something. You know, shit like, did you lock this one? No, you didn't lock it. He locked it. And he's fucking asleep. And you're making me wake him up. They're just shit like that. And just yell at the top of his lungs. And then kicking garbage cans on his way out. Calling everybody faggots and shit. Fucking funny.
Which I think was one thing that he didn't call him in this movie. He called them ladies a lot of the times.
Yeah,
which, you know, you hear that a lot.
That's not the way it really was.
No, I know, but I'm just saying. I think that might have been like one of the only slurs he didn't use.
Yeah, and all that. How much dick do you suck? Or do you suck dick?
Oh, he did. Yeah, he did get all up in that one guy like cuts. Maybe he did call that one guy. Maybe he was like
there's all that kind of action.
They're like talking about.
Yeah. Why are you eyeballing me? You trying to fuck me? Something like that. Fucking look at me. They were just always doing shit like that. You know, why are you fucking eyeballing me? Them pretty ass eyes. Shit like that. You know, just fucking funny.
Best part of you ran down your mama's ass crack and like there's a brown stain on the mattress. Shit like that. Yeah, it's a good movie. It's a good movie.
Yeah. I was doing something at one of those fucking ranges and fucking, I don't remember what I was doing. I was hanging up a water blivet. That's what it was. It was a big old fucking water bag. It was fucking made out of canvas. And I hear drill sergeant howl, Ross! Ross! And he's yelling at me from over the fucking hill like thing, you know, about a 30, 40, probably 50, 60 meters away. I go, yes, drill sergeant. He goes, where's Hooker? I was like, what? Where's Hooker? And I said, I don't know, drill sergeant. Hooker's just a random dude. You know, I don't know. Where is fucking Hooker? Where's Hooker? And I'm fucking running around like a chicken with my fucking head cut off looking, where's fucking Hooker? Hooker's a big old tall skinny black dude, kind of like fucking kid from JJ from Good Times, you know. I'm fucking looking for Hooker. And I hear it's like, like that, and I look up, and probably... 50 feet in the air, Hooker's hanging upside down around a tree. It's called a koalification. They make you hug a tree like a koala bear upside down, and you got to inchworm your way up it, and you got to hang there.
Koalification.
Yeah, he was up there for a long time. Fucking, he's holding on, you know. And he goes, get him down, can you get him? What's he doing wrong? Get him down. Shit like that. And I was like, come on down, Hooker. And he's making me give a hand and arm signals and shit like he's a helicopter and shit. I don't remember trying to bring him down. It's just fucking crazy shit, man. And he's, and he's coming down. He's getting ready to give out at any minute, you know. Get him safely down, Ross. Get him safely down. You know,
maneuver him out of
Yeah. Fucking stupid. It was that shit was constant, but that was one of the ones I remember. They make people do useless shit that is just hilarious because they're fucking with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. They get bored that it's constant. It's a constant. You're doing one task, but they're fucking with you, trying to get you to do a totally unrelated task for their amusement.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get you to multitask and to fucking not break.
Somehow.
Well, they're having fun, but it's also to just put maximum stress.
Yeah.
Maximum stress.
Yeah.
There's no sense. You cannot be inactive, so they're constantly, you know, fucking with you.
Constant fuckery.
Constant fuckery. It's mind fuckage. Finding Hooker upside down in a tree, like 50 feet off the ground, getting ready to fall at any minute. Yeah.
And you had to do like fucking semaphore flags, like to get him down.
Yeah. Because they taught us the fucking, helicopter hand signals and shit. So
that's pretty funny.
Trying to fucking guide him down. I was doing that. That's the land signal and shit,
I was gonna say, I see the dudes doing that on the fucking aircraft carriers.
Exactly.
That's pretty fucking funny.
Yeah.
All right, so we done talking about the movie?
Yeah.
All right, so like I said, I didn't realize that this was actually Stanley Kubrick's penultimate film. I thought he had made more than that in the 80s and 90s, but I guess I was mistaken. Yeah. I know he had like a couple that were unfinished, because like he did work on AI, and then Steven Spielberg ended up finishing it later on and stuff, which probably we should do a retrospective on one of these days. I saw that in the theater, but I haven't seen it in a really long time. I remember like kind of liking it, and then kind of not, but I might like feel differently about it nowadays. But yeah, so
Gramthars asked me if could Dennis Rader thrive underneath fucking Gunny, and I said, no. Dennis Rader couldn't even be a cop. He wanted to be a cop, he couldn't make it. So no. If they'd put him in the infantry basic, even in his prime, he'd been one of the guys that'd been out of there in a couple weeks.
Well, because I kind of think his whole thing about being
you can't have an attitude.
Yeah, and his whole thing too, like with him being like a cop groupie and that kind of stuff, was he wanted power over other people. Yeah. Like, so I don't think he would be able to like have. But
he couldn't physically deliver.
Yeah.
You had to have a certain amount of. First of all, you can't see yourself as being too good for anything. You have to be very humble. But you also
definitely
he wasn't like
not,
that.
No.
You have to understand rank structures and power structures. You have to be a part of all that. You have to. He couldn't fit into a pack mentality, and that's exactly what they're doing. And that's really what first part of this movie is about: is how to make a pack of wolves. That's what they're doing.
Yeah. And like I said, the second one's kind of
some of the platoon names are like wolf pack. That's a very common platoon name, wolf pack. And that's what it is.
Louis said wasn't BTK in the Air Force. He might have been. Yeah. I think he might have been.
That's almost a civilian job, though. Most Air Force shit, man, fuck, it's a joke. Yeah, I said it.
I said it.
Certain MOSs are tough, you know what I mean? Like they have some air rescue stuff, which is kind of like on the line, maybe like Army Rangers, Special Forces. Not even Army Ranger, probably more like, not even that sad. It does require a lot of stuff, you know what I mean? A lot of physicality. Even a lot of that fighter pilot stuff's not that tough. I mean, evidently the plane's pretty easy to fly nowadays.
Well, yeah, nowadays. Well, especially like all these kids like learning up with like video games and everything like that. They're like, whoa, this is like a video game. Yeah.
I mean, it is elite, though. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
Fighter pilots are elite, but they're elite at what they're doing. It's a different game.
Yeah, Stradog 78 said he was in the chair force.
Yeah, most of them are support units and medical units and service and supply. Most of them are like that in the Air Force. It's fucking cakewalk. I mean, they got carpet. They got carpet in the barracks. Good food and shit.
Fancy.
They deploy and they fucking put them up in hotels. Yeah, it's true. They're in a fucking hotel. They got girls. Some of those units are more girls than guys. And they look good, too. They're not even... Army girls when I was in were fucking ugly. Fucking ugly. Yeah. They're just like, oh, shit. You know?
Oh, poor Tom.
Yeah. Most of them are ugly. And the ones that, I ain't gonna talk bad about all of them. But
yeah, don't talk bad about girls. That's not cool.
A lot of Army girls fucking were in there for ulterior motives. They had other ways of making money, and fucking a lot of them were getting kicked out by CID for fucking selling something that they shouldn't be selling. I mean, they weren't all like that, but a lot of them were.
Yeah, somebody said Jeffrey Dahmer was in the Army.
Yeah. I don't know what kind of. I think he was some kind of a medic. I think.
I think he was. If I remember correctly, I might be totally wrong about that. All right, so we've been going more than an hour. Wow.
Yeah.
I thought this would probably be long because it's Kubrick, and plus it's like it's a military movie and or a war movie, and so you'd have a lot to talk about with that. But so we got to watch a movie tonight. Don't know what's gonna be, and then we'll do another show tomorrow. So have a good rest of your afternoon, you guys. And thanks everybody for dropping by and hanging out with us. And we will see you guys again tomorrow afternoon. Bye.